Hey, good afternoon and welcome to the Stochastic.com NFL Live Before Lock, little preseason edition here. Happy to have you guys with us. Only one game today. This breakdown of the week sucks, dude. It's one game today, two tomorrow, because I'm doing all the betting videos on the Odd Shopper channel. I'm Dave Loughran, by the way, at Lafayette_D on Twitter. And then 11 on Saturday. So, I mean, come on, man. I hate it. But I don't hate it for any other reason than the fact that I have to do 11 games tomorrow for Saturday. But hey, happy to have you guys with us. Listen, we got no Matt Kajeski today. I guess he's on vacation. I guess he took a little time off before college football and NFL starts. But we got Neil Orfield, and I'm excited because let me tell you why. Because I always called Matt the preseason pioneer, termed that one, and it's known across the land. But I've referred to Neil as the showdown shaman himself. And it just so happens that today, well, we got two games. Now, also, Neil, follow Neil at PlayerQ DFS. We have Matt Kajeski's projections. We have his full-out breakdown. I know you've been putting a ton of work in the lab tonight to make sure that you can fill the shoes. How you doing?
I'm doing well. Yeah, I thought you were going to go with preseason pretender for me because I'm clearly not Matt Kajeski. I'm doing my best to fill in, but nobody can really truly fill in for Kajeski. But I do have his projections. I've been reading up on, across the industry, what is being said about this slate to try to get an idea of ownership of what's going to happen in this game. So I think that I have prepared enough that I can adequately fill in, for the next couple of days while Kajeski is out. I'm excited. I'm excited about the slate. I'm going to play this slate. I don't always play preseason NFL, but after digging in, I'm like, it's kind of fun.
It is fun. It's not as fun as NFL regular season, but it's better than baseball. So
yeah, exactly. And I've been looking at slates from last year as well. Like I've been looking at the week 2 slates from last year to see what I can glean from those as well. And it's different than regular season for sure.
So all right, let's talk about this slate. We're gonna do about a 30-minute show here. I think it makes sense. It's one game. Then you got MLB Live Before Lock coming up, only 4 games. So kind of a light slate from a sports perspective today. But excited to get into this, and I think we'll start with the quarterback positions. I'll tell you what, man, if you're looking at Cleveland, there's a couple things to consider here. One, Dorian Thompson-Robinson has been good in the preseason through the first 2 weeks, no doubt about it. I actually drafted him in a rookie draft with my last pick because why the hell not after seeing those 2 games? What if Watson just ends up being terrible? I doubt that'll be the case, but he has played the back end of these games, in weeks 1 and week 2 against lesser competition. I still think it's a great spot for him because he's starting. My guess is that you just see it swapped where in the Hall of Fame game, Kellen Mond started, DTR played the second half. I would assume that DTR, because he's starting, plays the first half. Kellen Mond plays the second half. Joshua Dobbs isn't playing. Deshaun Watson isn't playing. This is a spot to me where Kellen Mond getting a better matchup against the Eagles like 3s and 4s definitely makes sense, but DTR has that rushing upside. Both of these quarterbacks squarely in play today against the Eagles.
First of all, I have to ask you, when you say that you drafted him in a league, are you referring to the Dynasty League that you and I are in together?
Yes, that is it.
Okay. I thought
maybe you didn't know it this year. Yeah,
because it was a commissioner forced pick is what it said on the thing. So I was like, maybe that was something that Lofty doesn't know.
I got auto picked, and I was like, can you back up for me and pick that? Because
gotcha.
Who cares?
But, I mean, it's also it's a super flex league, so quarterback's more valuable in that kind of league. But yes, so back to this slide. Just wanted to make sure that you knew that you also drafted him in our league, but that is when you're referring to. Yeah, DTR, like clearly one of the top plays on the slate. Like I think if you're playing cash today, DTR is a cash game lock. Like he is one of the highest projected plays on the slate. He should play a full half. He should hopefully pick up some fantasy points on the ground. Really my only concern with DTR, and for preseason, I'm not aware of anybody who does ownership projections for preseason. I would imagine DTR is going to be like 60+% owned though. And that's my only concern with him. I'm still happy to play DTR. I'm going to have him in a ton of lineups. I'm not going to have him in all my lineups just because I do think he is going to get a ton of ownership, just because literally everything I've read across the industry is like, yep, this guy's going to play a full half. He has rushing upside. He's going to be great. So you should play this guy. So DTR definitely the guy who projects better across the industry. I do think that Kellen Mond, though, is interesting the reason you mentioned he should be playing against worse defenders for one thing, but he's also just not going to get a ton of, like, I don't think he's going to get nearly as much ownership as DTR. I could be completely wrong. I don't do ownership projections, but that is my read of the situation. Is Kellen Mond is not going to get a ton of ownership. Should he get ownership? I don't know. Do you remember the Mike Zimmer press conference about Kellen Mond? Or I don't know if it was a press conference or just a reporter asked him, don't you want to see what you have in Kellen Mond? And he said, no, I've seen plenty in practice. And he didn't play him at all. Yeah, it was just, man, it was a burn.
He's not
Kellen
very
Mond.
good.
Yeah, he's not great.
But he's going to play a hat. Like, assuming that Stefanski does the same thing that he's done, it's going to be DTR gets the first half, barring an injury or whatever, and then Mond gets the second half.
Yep.
And the second half is going to be a better matchup. So, I mean, that's what comes into play here. But I agree with you, especially with the hype surrounding DTR and his ability to move on the ground. He's got to be more popular here. It's an interesting wrinkle. And like, obviously when we're talking DFS in the preseason, you guys are going to have to make some judgments for yourself. The one judgment that I'm coming to, or the one question that I'm struggling with is, like, if you're right and DTR is very popular, what's it going to look like with him going up? I know it's not likely going to be any Eagles starters, but they're a pretty deep team, man. Like, there's some depth on this team. Even if it's their second stringers or like fringe starters, there's some guys out there that can ball.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, he's going to have, the tougher matchup, I would imagine, than Kellen Mond. As you said, Kellen Mond's probably going to be playing, the weaker defenders. So there are points in his favor. The bigger one being that Kellen Mond is also just, I think he's going to get significantly less ownership than DTR, but also there's no salary cap. You can play both of these guys. Like, you're expecting both of them to play half the game. You can't really, guarantee that from too many players in this game, or you can't expect it from too many. So there's really no reason you can't play both DTR and Kellen Mond. I think that they're both very strong plays. I think DTR the more projectable play than Kellen Mond, but really this is, you score one touchdown. These tend to be low scoring games. I think you told me before that it's before we started that it's what, a 35.5 total, something like that, like really low totals. Kellen Mond throws a touchdown, that could be enough to be optimal. So I think both of these guys certainly in play.
Yeah, I talked about it on the betting video that I did yesterday. I posted it on Twitter. It's on YouTube on the Odd Shopper channel that I like the under 38.5, and it dropped to 35.5. I mentioned you before the show. This is a 60-point game now for sure. Whenever you get that beautiful closing line value. But the other side of this game is what is odd to me. I know we have Marcus Mariota, and of course I will always go with Matt Gajewski when it comes to the preseason. We have Marcus Mariota projected far below all of these guys. The only thing that stands out is that last year, Nick Sirianni played Gardner Minshew the entire first half. That's interesting, right? Like, if Marcus Mariota is Gardner Minshew now, does he play? Because it's not going to be Hurts, and Nick Sirianni doesn't tell us anything, but these teams had a joint practice last season before week 2. They had a joint practice this week before week 2. The same teams, Eagles, Browns, same matchup. Right. And Sirianni said that he views every one of these joint practices as a preseason game. So I don't think you see much of anything from the starters. There's still positional battles, but how much does Marcus Mariota play ahead of Tanner McKee and Ian Book? That's my question, because those guys stink.
Yeah, it's a really good question. And I think we don't really know. Like, there is some possibility that Marcus Mariota doesn't play at all, is the impression that I've gotten from what I've read around the industry. We need to keep our eye on, is he in street clothes? Are we sure that Marcus Mariota is going to be playing? If he does play, it certainly is going to hurt the other quarterbacks for the Eagles. So it's a much murkier situation. So as I said, DTR cash game lock. I don't think you necessarily have a cash game lock from the Eagles quarterbacks. If I were going to play one, I think Tanner McKee is the likeliest to get significant playing time, to play a full half. But it's a much murkier situation with 3 potential quarterbacks in play. I think it's keep your eye on the news, because there is a possibility that Marcus Mariota doesn't play. I'm expecting him to. We have him projected for some playing time, and it makes all 3 of them less appealing. Tanner McKee, Mariota, and Ian Book. They're all, we have fine projections for them. But really, I mean, again, as I said before, one of them throws a touchdown, that's probably going to be enough to make it into at least cashing, possibly getting into the winning lineup. So all 3 are in play if they are all playing, because even one quarter from a quarterback could be enough. If they have lead a 70-yard drive and score a touchdown in that one quarter, that's probably going to be enough to make it into an optimal lineup. These are really low scoring affairs. So really, all 3 of these guys are in play. I think my preference, I mean, our highest projected of the Eagles quarterbacks is Tanner McKee. He's probably also going to get the highest ownership, but I don't think that's a guarantee. No, I think it is. I think Tanner McKee pretty clearly going to be the highest owned of the three. Unless the name recognition of Mariota, maybe he'll get more clicks, but I think McKee is going to be the highest owned of the group. I think all three are in play, assuming they all suit up.
David Tonk said, I don't think it's a lock that Mon gets a whole half. It's this, I know it's the assumption, but DTR playing 3/4 is in the cards. Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. It is. The problem is if you're projecting DTR for 3/4, then you need to play him in every lineup. Like if you really think he's going to play in 3/4 in a preseason game, you should have a ton of DTR today. All right, let's talk about running backs here. By the way, hit that thumbs up if you haven't done so yet. Appreciate you guys hanging out with us on a Thursday evening. All right, so with the running back position, and feel free to hit this from all angles here. This is, Nick Chubb's not going to play, but then Jerome Ford, who would have played, he's week to week with an injury. Yeah. So that means you're going to see John Kelly. You're going to see Demetric Felton, but Kelly probably going to look real good here. Hassan Hall. And then last week, super weird. I shouldn't say weird because Sirianni knows what he has in Kenny Gainwell. He didn't play, not expected to play in this game. Neither is Boston Scott. Trey Sermon played a lot, 29 snaps. Rashad Penny played 27 snaps. Swift came in, got some snaps early, little bit of work there, looked effective, bounced outside for a couple nice runs, good blocking from that. Even that second string O-line is good. But this is actually one of those games where I think you could see heavy doses of specific running backs from each side and not just some combination of 5 different guys getting work.
Yeah, it's a really interesting situation. So my assumption is that they just, the Eagles had Boston Scott and Kenny Gainwell on the roster last year. They know what they had in them. They're the veterans on the team, so they didn't feel the need to play them. They played the guys who have not been on the Eagles as long. So they gave some run to Rashad Penny, DeAndre Swift. It's hard to know what they're going to do. I don't really think it's been forecasted very well. One interesting thing to note is we have Trey Sermon, I should say, Matt Kajeski, who does our projections, has Trey Sermon projected as the top running back in the game. That is different than the industry. And those are the kinds of places that I like to target. When we are ahead of the industry on certain players, that is a signal to me that those players are probably going to be lower owned than they should be based on our projection. So it makes me really like Trey Sermon, the fact that we have him projected as the best running back in the entire game, including the Browns running backs. We have Trey Sermon as the top. He's not projected as well other places. He still is projected like he's going to play. He still has the best projection of the Eagles running backs other places, but he's, not up there with the Browns running backs. It is a really hard situation to read. We're all it's a lot of guesswork going into who's going to get the carries, and that's really what we're guessing at. We're just trying to figure out playing time. But I think that there is a good case. I think that it makes sense to have Trey Sermon projected a little better because we did have, DeAndre Swift came in, played a little bit last week, but they probably don't really need to see too often what they have in DeAndre Swift and Rashad Penny. They already know what they have in Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell. So really, I think it makes sense for Trey Sermon to get the most carries here. He's probably also more at risk of losing a roster spot than some of these other backs. So I think that Trey Sermon is a really interesting, really solid low owned play in this spot here. I'm going to be playing a good amount of Trey Sermon. Kennedy Brooks, I think also, similarly, who knows how they're going to react to him fumbling last week. Like maybe they want to build his confidence, give him a chance to, redeem himself after fumbling last week. Maybe they want to, maybe he's also on the cutting block here. I think that my highest interest running back in the game is Trey Sermon. I'll probably play some Kennedy Brooks. I don't really know what to make of Rashad Penny. Obviously, if he plays a lot, like you're going to want to play Rashad Penny, but I don't think he's going to play like too many snaps here. I don't think he's going to play like half the game would be my guess, but
I think it would be odd if he did, honestly. Yeah. Like he's another guy. I know he's just dealt with some serious impactful injuries over his career. Maybe I want to get him back out there for some game action. Would you be shocked if Trey Sermon and Kennedy Brooks split this game? Like, I mean,
not at all.
It wouldn't be all that shocking to me.
No, they know exactly what they have in all of the other running backs. Like these are the two guys that you really need to like see, like, can they make a difference? So it would make sense for Trey Sermon and Kennedy Brooks to split. We don't know if that's going to happen. Maybe Rashad Penny does get more run than we're expecting. Maybe DeAndre Swift is still getting run. Maybe they're even going to rotate in Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell. Like maybe they do want to get them some action prior to the season. So it's hard to predict what's going to happen, but I do think Trey Sermon is the likeliest to get a significant workload here. Like I said, I think even if they do play Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell, they're still not going to be playing them like half the game. Like it might be, maybe they get a quarter of action, something like that, just to get a little bit of game action. And that could be enough. Like if they score a touchdown, if Boston Scott comes in, scores a goal line touchdown, that would be enough at super low ownership because he's not getting much projection across the industry. It's hard to predict. It's a very difficult place to project. The Browns a little bit easier. I think we're confident Nick Chubb's not going to play. Jerome Ford has been hurt. He's not going to play. So really all they have available is Demetric Felton, John Kelly, and Hassan Hall. We have Demetric Felton projected the best of those three. The industry has Demetric Felton projected the best of the three. He should get the most snaps, followed by John Kelly. I think those are the two that we're more interested in. Hassan Hall, I don't know how much run he's really going to get. He should get some run. If he, again, I've said this, 5 times already on the stream. If he scores a touchdown, that'll be enough. But it's hard to predict touchdowns. So the only real reason to play Hassan Hall is he'll probably be single digit owned, maybe. Like he'll get low ownership relative to John Kelly and Demetric Felton. I would expect Felton to get the most ownership. So John Kelly, maybe somebody you can target at a little bit reduced ownership relative to Felton. But it's it's hard to know exactly what's going to happen. So really, I'm playing the ownership game. I think John Kelly becomes interesting because I think he is going to get significantly lower ownership than Demetric Felton based on what I've read across the industry.
Josh, curious, where did you see that they were playing Gainwell and Boston Scott? Serious question. If you point me towards that, it'd be extremely helpful because I didn't see that. It's possible I missed it. There's a lot of information out there. If you were to rank your favorite running backs for tournaments today, okay, just the rankings, who would they be?
Trey Sermon, John Kelly, Demetric Felton, Kennedy Brooks, Hassan Hall, Boston Scott, Kenneth Gainwell, and then if you want to take flyers on Rashad Penny, DeAndre Swift, you could.
God, Penny's a tough one, man.
Yeah. Like we actually haven't projected fairly well. We have Penny projected better than Kennedy Brooks. I struggle with, like, I just don't know what to expect. And Gajeski sharper with this stuff than I am. I've never tried to project preseason. I feel like I did read somewhere that the Eagles might be rotating running back somewhere. So I think there might be I know somebody in chat is saying that. I want to see if I can find where that was said, but that does make me think, like, yeah, it's possible that they play these guys, but they just don't really have much incentive to play a ton. Like even if they do rotate in Boston Scott and Kenneth Gainwell, I don't think they have a ton of incentive to play them like a lot because they know who they have in them.
Yeah, last year in week 2, DeAndre Toney got 5 snaps, Jason Huntley got 8, Kenny Gainwell got 11, Kennedy Brooks got 8, and Boston Scott got 10. So the hope is that it's not that. Yeah,
exactly. And it could be, like, they have so many running backs that they could just not give anybody a ton of workload.
Wide receivers, where it always gets messy here. Top Shot picks, I'm hitting the over. I mean, look, if you're going to hit the over now, hit it at 35.5. It was 38.5 yesterday at this exact time. So sure, I get that. Sirianni hasn't really given us much, but just looking at wide receivers in this game, there's a few that stand out because you're not going to get any of the top guys. That's pretty evident at this point. There's no like AJ Brown, Devontae Smith. And if any of these guys did play, it's drive maximum. Matt Gajeski and his depth chart doesn't expect any of these guys to play. Zacchaeus not expected to play. So we'll see. Quez Watkins didn't practice earlier this week. How do you want to break down a position where it's so much more volatile than running backs who get guaranteed touches? Like a touch is always more valuable as a reception, particularly on DraftKings, right? It's worth more than a carry, but carries are also so much more predictable, particularly in the preseason, than they are in the regular season, for running backs over wide receivers.
Yeah, absolutely. So it is really hard to break down these positions. I will say it's a little bit easier this week than it was last week, because I was doing the show with Matt and he's like, yeah, this team is only carrying 9 wide receivers, so I'm interested in playing them. Both of these teams today only have 6 receivers that we're expecting to play. So that does benefit. Like, we can expect real volume, at least, that they're going to be on the field from a number of these guys. So we have Tyree Cleveland as the highest projected wide receiver of the slate, followed by Joseph Nagata, number 2 for the Eagles. Those are the guys that we're expecting to get the most snaps here. I think that makes sense. That is what we saw last week. There's a ton of volatility, which makes it hard. Like, I don't think that I want to play any of these guys in cash games. Maybe Tyree Cleveland, he projects well enough. Cleveland or Nagata you could consider in cash games. I don't think I would play any of the Browns receivers in cash games. But I do think they're still worth playing in GPPs. Like, just because, as you said, like, every touch is more valuable. This is full PPR. The scores are low. If any of these guys get like 3 receptions and a touchdown, they're absolutely going to be in the winning lineup, or the optimal lineup, at least if they don't get a ton of ownership. So I really do think it's worth it to play these wide receivers in GPPs because of the highly volatile nature. Somebody's going to put up a score here. It's tough. So as I said, I looked at the slates from last year just to get an idea of, like, do we go back to our regular roster construction for Showdown? Like, I have very, very kind of somewhat strict rules and like how I approach things for Showdown. And you really can't, like, there is no like roster construction, like, okay, I'll play this guy if I play the quarterback. It's tough. So because we're rotating players and the winning lineups just don't follow the usual construction rules. So really it just comes down to who is going to play the most snaps, get the most targets. We have it as Tyree Cleveland, Joseph Nagata at the top, followed by the Cleveland guys. David Bell and Cedric Tillman are the guys that we're expecting to get the most. Anthony Schwartz he's been running wind sprints in the he ran wind sprints last week in the preseason game. But I think that he is a guy who can have just like one long home run play that could pay off for him. So I do have a lot of interest in those 3 for Cleveland as GPP plays: David Bell, Cedric Tillman, Anthony Schwartz. I guess we have Austin Watkins projected not far behind Schwartz. Also, I guess you consider playing him. Mike Harley Jr. and Jalen Wayne. If I'm playing 150, I'm sprinkling these guys in, but they're probably not making it into my like first 10 lineups. The guys who would make it into, if I'm only playing 10 lineups, David Bell, Cedric Tillman, Anthony Schwartz, I think probably would. Maybe Austin Watkins Jr. And then for the Eagles, it would be Tyree Cleveland, Joseph Nagata, and Jaden Hazelwood, the guys I'm the most interested in. You could sprinkle in some Greg Ward, Johnny King, Devin Allen if you are playing like 150 lineups.
Excuse me. Yeah. So hold on. I got a tickle in the throat. All right. So a couple of things here. Randy Jackson said, I've been hearing Mariota could play a half. Yeah. And he said, I don't know. The honest answer is neither do I. I can only tell you what happened last year. In week 1, Jalen Hurts played a drive. In week 2, Minshew played the whole first half, and then Reed Sinnett played almost the entire second half. Carson Strong got the last drive of the game, basically just some kneel downs. I don't know, man. It's tough. Like, because if Mariota plays a half, that'd be crazy. I don't think he will, but I think it's possible that he could come out and play a half. So we'll see.
And he'll be lower ownership too. So like there is a case to be made for Marcus Mariota as a play. Because if he plays a half at low ownership, he would be an absolute smash. Like, he is the veteran quarterback of this group, the most likely to put up a big game. He runs also. Like, he's maybe not to the same extent as DTR, but Marcus Mariota does have some running upside as well. So if he is in play, if he starts the game, I'm gonna have some interest. I'll play some Marcus Mariota.
Josh D said, nice to talk to some real football fans. All my friends hate preseason. Yeah, I get scoffed at for doing preseason betting. Yeah, dude, go. You should do it. Preseason DFS, all that stuff. Jesse Rodriguez, what's your guys' take on the defenses? So actually, you look at our projections, Matt Kajewski's projections. By the way, link in the description for that. If you guys haven't yet, it's $19.95 for the week. Or I think the whole preseason package is like $50, but $19.95 for the entire week. When you consider the fact that how many slates, there's a Thursday, a Friday slate, a Saturday slate, Sunday, there's even a Monday game this week. Plus they do showdown slates. It's an awesome deal. You're getting all of the projections for every single game, which, by the way, that gives you a massive edge in preseason when some of these people are going out there and just smashing buttons. You know what I mean? Right. Gets you the preseason depth charts and is right up for every player. And premium Discord, our expert premium Discord with Matt Kajewski in it. Really awesome deal. Link in the description. Or if you're like, hey, Do you have anything better? I would say yes, I do. If you can play on PrizePicks, if you're in a state where PrizePicks is available, great site. You're just picking over-unders on all players, right? They have preseason too, which is crazy because nowhere else has preseason props for pick'em. PrizePicks has it. You're just building lineups, 3, 4, 5, 6 overs or unders. It's essentially a parlay, except it's not. It's DFS pick'em. 10x if you hit 5, 20x if you hit 6. And unlike traditional sports books, even if you only hit 4 or 5, you still 2x. You still make money back. 100% first match deposit bonus up to $100 when you sign up at PrizePicks. We threw the link in the description and in chat. But here's the big kicker. All of our content, Stochastic Plus Platinum, $120 value the entire month. Entire month you get when you sign up at PrizePicks. So you're getting the deposit bonus. You're doubling your bankroll out of the gate. You got to use the link or we can't find you. And all of our tools, not just our preseason football package, right? Not just the regular season weeks that you would get out of this. You'd get a full probably 1.5, 2 weeks out of regular season football, but baseball, MMA, NASCAR, PGA, ownership, top stacks, everything, and premium Discord with the MLB and NFL lineup generators. So PrizePicks, amazing offer, $120 value from us and 100% first match deposit bonus from them when you sign up using the link and in the description. All right. You want to tackle these wide receivers for Philadelphia?
Yeah, I mean, I just did a little bit so my favorite from Philadelphia, we have the highest projected by far for the Eagles, Tyree Cleveland and Joseph Nagata. There's a gap after those two in our expectation for how many snaps they get, how many targets they get. So favorite, those are my two favorite receivers of the entire slate, including the Browns guys. Cleveland, Nagata are top two receivers. And then, yeah, as I said, there's a gap before Jadon Hazelwood is our next best projected Eagles receiver, followed by, you could sprinkle in Greg Ward, Devon Allen, Johnny King. We have a projection for if you want to sprinkle those guys in. They are all viable on this slate. And I would have some if I'm playing, even if you're playing probably 50 lineups, I would have exposure to all of these receivers. But if you're playing like 10 or fewer lineups, the only ones I'm really playing from the Eagles would be Tyree Cleveland and Joseph Nagata, or from Philadelphia. And then from Cleveland, yeah, it'd be I would play in 10 lineups, probably David Bell, Cedric Tillman, Anthony Schwartz. In 50 lineups, I would also mix in Austin Watkins Jr., Mike Harley Jr., and Jalen Wayne.
We'll build a lineup once we get through these positions. If you were to give me your top 4 receivers overall on this slate, I know you just gave me Philly, but to put a bow on the position, who would it be?
Yeah, I mean, so it would just be our top projected guys, which is Tyree Cleveland, Joseph Nagata, David Bell, and Cedric Tillman. We want guys who are going to be on the field. I know that there are benefits to the other receivers in that I think the guys who project worse are also going to get the lower ownership. But if I'm just ranking like the likeliest to put up scores, it would be those 4: Cleveland, Nagata, Bell, and Tillman.
The problem that you run into when it comes to tight ends is like none of these guys are going to project for much. Mitchell Payton played 44 snaps in the Hall of Fame game, 25 in week 1. I would think he gets back to a lot of snaps in this one. Look, undrafted free agent. He's not exciting, but is he going to be on the field? Probably. Greeny probably going to be on the field. If nothing else, there will be tight ends on both of these sides that will be on the field for a decent amount. Mostly on the Cleveland side, I think you can rely on that more than Philly. But it's still like you're just hoping for a rogue touchdown because they're not going to be ripping off Travis Kelce or even take Dawson Knox from 2023 type production. You're just not going to see a lot of that in the preseason with this position.
Yeah, it's tough. It's really tough to want to play the tight ends. And honestly, from what I've looked at from past slates, tight ends have not typically done great on preseason NFL slates. So you don't really need to play these guys, but because performances that you need to have from the tight ends are few and far between. It's rare that you get a tight end who has 5 receptions and a touchdown in the preseason. But yeah, Mitchell Payton would be probably the tight end that I'm most interested in this game. He played 44 and 25 snaps, ran 17 and 15 routes in the 2 games that the Browns have played so far. That's fairly interesting. I guess Greeny right up there as well. He actually has run more routes. So maybe I'm talking out a line saying that I prefer Mitchell Payne, because Greeny, that he has run more routes. You can make a case for these guys. We project them worse than like even our worst wide receivers there. So not expecting much from them, but they should come in at low ownership. So if you want to play Mitchell Payton, Greeny, Miller Forrestall, even there's nothing wrong with that. They're guys, you're taking shots. All of these guys are pretty low probability, including the back end wide receivers, including really all of the wide receivers. So they are in play, but lower probability than the high end wide receivers.
And as far as defense and kicker goes, Josh had asked the question like, who do I play? And happy to have you guys hanging out and chat with us. All that stuff makes for better shows as usual. Who do I play between the Eagles and Cleveland? We haven't projected identical. I will say Philly's got some hard hitters and some ball hawks that are fighting for roster spots and potentially, like top backup spots. You saw that against Baltimore, just the pick six, some big plays. But I don't think that's enough to be like, oh, they're just better than Cleveland, because you look at Ian Book and Tanner McKee, and then Kellen Mond. There's going to be mistakes made on either side. Both defenses are in great spots. And as far as kickers go, you mentioned it before the show, Jake Elliott projects very well for us today. So wrap it up with those two, Neil.
Yeah, so Jake Elliott is our top projected play of the slate. That's different than other sites that I've seen. So that is another spot that I want to target. I think we can find edge by playing Jake Elliott at what should be pretty low ownership, because other sites have both of these kickers projected like below the high end wide receivers. We have Jake Elliott projected higher than the high end wide receivers. And each team is only playing one kicker, so they're going to get every kicking opportunity. So I do have a lot of interest in Jake Elliott, but also Cade York. I mean, we don't have them projected as well. They're not projected to score as many points, but you can certainly play Cade York. It is largely a coin flip between who's the best. And defense is absolutely a necessity in preseason DFS. I think I heard on Gajeski say on a previous video he's going to have at least one defense in. I don't want to misquote him, but I think he said he's going to have at least one defense in every single lineup he makes. I think that makes sense. The defenses project. They're some of the best projected plays on the entire slate. They're the only position that you can count on. Like, they're going to be out there for every snap, but you can't count on that from any offensive player. The defenses are going to be racking up points throughout the game. So both defenses look great. You're going to want them to be a big part of your teams. You should probably have at least one defense in at least most of the lineups that you are playing tonight. If I had to pick a preference, it would probably be the Eagles, just because I think Kellen Mond is probably the worst quarterback in the game. And as you said, they've got some ball hawks. So a lot to like about the Eagles defense. But honestly, Ian Book should be playing some for the Eagles as well. So both defenses look great, very much in play. If I'm ranking the defenses and the kickers, I think it would probably go, factoring in ownership, it would probably go Jake Elliott, Eagles defense, Browns defense, Cade York. Maybe Cade York, then Browns defense, because I would guess the Browns defense is also going to get a lot of ownership, whereas kickers might go a little bit more overlooked. But all four very much in play.
All right. I like it. Want to build a lineup before we go?
Yeah, let's do it.
And hey, hit that thumbs up before you go, guys. We get to 50. That'd be pretty sweet. I know it's an early show. Not the same live before log as usual, but it's weird with these games and MLB and everything. Don't worry, once the regular season starts, more football content that you can imagine. You won't have enough time in the day to consume it. So we'll start it off at quarterback. Who do you want to go with? We'll just go back and forth. We got like 2 minutes to rip this lineup out.
So you mean like a captain who should we go with?
Oh, I'm sorry. Yeah, a captain. I'm used to going with quarterback or defensive captain.
Yeah. Should we just? I bet DTR is going to get a ton of ownership at captain. I almost want to go with the kicker at captain. Like we could go with Jake Elliott. Is that this is a GPP lineup, right?
Yeah.
GPP. I wouldn't hate. Let's just go with. I like the idea of going with Jake Elliott at captain.
All right, go for it. Why not? All right, so go with Elliott. I'm gonna throw Trey Sermon in there. I think this is one of the. I think he could get a lot of work today. So give me Trey Sermon, and I think he'll get a lot against like the backups to the backups. Who do you got next?
So I feel like we've locked in a couple fairly low owned plays already, so we can start going a little bit chalkier here. I think that we're going to want to play DTR, so I say we just put DTR in the lineup.
Okay, let's do it. That's awesome. Top Shot Picks just purchased a lineup simulator today. Yeah, dude, it's awesome. Wait till you see the NFL one where they have showdown for it, and you can create your own you can create your own narrative for that game. If you think one team's going to get smoked or you think it's going to be a low scoring game, you can input your score and everything, and it builds lineups with that story that you're telling it. Awesome stuff. But yeah, for baseball, it's great too. All right, DTR. All right, I will go with, because we're going to want a defense at some point, but let me plug in. I think who's our top projected wide receiver? Is it Tyree Cleveland?
It is.
Yeah. He looked nice last game. I'll go Tyree Cleveland as well.
All right. So I think now we want one defense, and I'm debating if I want another like sort of low owned wide receiver. We already did play some off the board kind of plays. So we don't necessarily need to go, but I'm kind of interested in going to like maybe try Anthony Schwartz. We could just go chalk from this point and just do both defenses, and let's try Anthony Schwartz.
All right, so we'll go Schwartz and we'll close it out with Philly defense. How about that? Or could go Browns, doesn't matter. Either one, same thing. Hey, appreciate you guys hanging out with us. Hit that thumbs up before you go. Subscribe to the channel. Much appreciated here tonight. One game is it. We got 2 tomorrow, 11 on Saturday. We'll be with you for everything. Follow Neil at PlayerQDFS, me at Loppy_D on the Twitters. And shout out to Jordan Klein, as always, for producing this one. Don't forget PrizePicks down there, free month of all of our tools, lineup generator, Discord, top stacks, ownership, projections, you name it. And all of our preseason stuff as well. That's all it is. That's all you got to do. And you get that deposit bonus. Pretty good stuff. But more than anything, stick around. MLB Live Before Lock coming up in about 20 minutes. We'll see you guys over there. Peace.